Let me ask you something honest. Have you ever walked away from a conversation with a woman and thought, was that something or am I reading too far into it? Maybe she laughed a little longer than the joke deserved. Maybe she found a reason to stay in the conversation even when it should have naturally ended. Maybe something in her energy felt different around you, but you couldn't put your finger on exactly what it was. Here's the truth nobody tells you. You probably weren't imagining it. The human body is a terrible liar. A person can choose their words carefully. They can keep their face neutral. They can play it cool in conversation. But the body runs on a completely different system. One that operates below conscious thought, below intention, below the ability to manage or control. And when a woman is genuinely thinking about you, when you've taken up real estate in her mind, that system starts broadcasting signals she doesn't even know she's sending. Today, I'm going to walk you through 11 of those signals. Not surface level stuff. Real, psychologically grounded behaviors rooted in how the human nervous system responds to attraction, curiosity, and emotional investment. Stay until sign number 10, because that one is the hardest to fake and the easiest to miss. And it's the clearest window into exactly where her head is when it comes to you. Why body language matters more than words. Before we get into the signs, let me give you the foundation, because understanding why this works makes everything else click. Psychologists estimate that somewhere between 60 and 90% of what we communicate happens nonverbally, not through sentences, through posture, proximity, timing, micro-expressions, and unconscious physical habits. When someone is emotionally activated, excited, nervous, attracted, curious, their limbic system, the emotional brain, fires up. And the limbic system doesn't consult your social filter before it acts. It just reacts. That's why body language is reliable in a way that words simply aren't. Words go through editing. Body language largely doesn't. Once you understand that, you stop chasing words and start paying attention to what's actually happening underneath them. And everything gets a lot clearer. The 11 signs. 1. She becomes slightly restless the moment you appear. Not anxious in a bad way. More like a quiet electricity enters her body. You'll notice small things. She adjusts her clothing without reason. She repositions herself in her seat. She plays with whatever's in her hands. A coffee cup, her phone, a ring. Her foot might start moving slightly, or she'll shift her weight from one side to the other. This is nervous energy, and nervous energy in this context is a good thing. It means your presence is doing something to her system that she isn't fully in control of. Her body is trying to discharge the emotional charge she feels when you're close. Here's the tell. Watch what happens when you leave the room. If the restlessness settles, if she visibly relaxes, you were the source. You are what her nervous system was reacting to. 2. She laughs slightly more than the moment calls for. Everyone knows laughter is social. But there's a difference between polite laughter and genuine, slightly out of proportion laughter that happens because someone just delights in your presence. When a woman is thinking about you, she becomes more responsive to you. More tuned in, more easily amused, more emotionally open. The laugh is louder than it needs to be. It lasts a beat too long. She might touch your arm while she does it, or look at you directly after to see your reaction. That extra beat, that slight overshoot, that's not performance. That's her emotional investment leaking through. 3. Her eyes come back to you. You don't have to catch her staring. The more subtle version is just as telling. She glances over in the middle of a group conversation. Not to say anything, just to check where you are, what you're doing, who you're talking to. She holds eye contact a half second longer than a neutral exchange would require. She looks away when you notice, then quietly looks back. There's science underneath this. Emotional stimulation causes pupil dilation. The eyes literally open wider. If her eyes seem particularly bright or wide when she's talking to you, that's not just good lighting. That's her body responding to you on a physiological level. And if her gaze drops briefly from your eyes to your mouth and returns, even once during a conversation, pay attention. That's not accidental. That's her mind going somewhere she hasn't said out loud yet. 4. She manufactures reasons to keep talking. The conversation should have ended 5 minutes ago. Logically, naturally, it wrapped up, but she's still there. She asks one more question. She brings up something unrelated. She circles back to a topic you already covered. She remembers a small detail you mentioned earlier and brings it back into the conversation in a way that says, I was actually listening to you. When someone is genuinely thinking about you, they don't want the access to end. They find small, low-risk ways to extend the time without making it obvious that's what they're doing. The manufactured reason is the tell. The real reason is you. 5. She mirrors you without realizing it. This one is rooted deeply in social psychology, and it's one of the most reliable signals there is. Mirroring is when one person unconsciously replicates the posture, gestures, pace, or energy of another. It happens automatically when someone is emotionally attuned to you, when they're genuinely locked in. You lean back, she leans back, you slow your speaking pace, hers slows. You get animated about something, her energy lifts to meet yours. You cross your arms, 30 seconds later her arms cross. She's not copying you on purpose. Her subconscious is syncing with you because you have her full attention. Mirroring is the body's way of saying, I'm with you before the mouth says anything at all. 6. Her feet tell the real story. People learn to manage their faces. Very few people think about managing their feet. In group settings especially, feet reveal true focus. She might be engaged in conversation with 3 other people, laughing, responding, completely present, but if her feet are angled toward you, her subconscious has already chosen its point of gravity. Feet follow interest. They point toward what the body actually wants to move closer to. It's one of the most honest signals in a person's entire physical vocabulary, precisely because almost nobody thinks to control it. 7. She creates small physical contact and then gets quiet for a second. Not bold contact, subtle contact. The kind that could be explained away but happens too consistently to be random. A light touch on your forearm during laughter. Handing you something and letting her fingers overlap yours for just a moment. A brief brush against your shoulder as she passes. A playful push during banter. Watch what happens immediately after. Does she get slightly quiet? Does she smile and look away? Does something shift in her composure for just a second before she recovers? That pause, that tiny reset, is her body registering the contact and what it meant. Touch triggers oxytocin. She felt it, and for just a moment, it showed. 8. She remembers the small things. You mentioned offhandedly 3 weeks ago that you prefer your coffee a certain way. She remembered. You said something in passing about a tough week you had, and she brings it up later to ask how it turned out. Memory is a form of investment. We remember what we replay, and we replay what matters to us. When a woman remembers small, specific details about your life, things you didn't flag as important, things you barely remember saying yourself, it's because you've been in her thoughts. She's been turning conversations over, holding on to pieces of you between the times you're actually together. 9. She positions her body toward you consistently. This is different from leaning in during a conversation. This is about overall physical orientation. Even in a crowded room, even when she's not talking directly to you, her body tends to angle in your direction. Her shoulders face you. She positions herself where she can see you easily. She doesn't put her back to you. Proximity and orientation are both driven by the same instinct. We move our bodies toward what we're drawn to. If you consistently notice that she's positioned where she can see you and where you can see her, that's not coincidence. That's her subconscious doing the math. 10. She brings you into her imagined future. This is the one that's hardest to fake because it requires her to have already placed you inside her mental world before the conversation even started. It sounds like this. If you ever came out to Colorado, I feel like you'd actually love it. Or we'd probably have completely opposite opinions about that movie. Actually, I kind of want to see what you'd think. Or isn't it weird how we both ended up here? I feel like we'd have found each other eventually anyway. These aren't random observations. They are tiny, low-risk glimpses into a version of the future where you're included. She's not making grand declarations. She's testing the waters, seeing how it feels to put you in a scene alongside her. Psychologically, this is significant. You don't place someone in your imagined future unless they're already living in your present thoughts. This is the sign that you've moved from someone she knows to someone she's genuinely emotionally considering. 11. Her energy resets when you arrive. She was tired. She was distracted. She was having a flat kind of day, and it showed. And then you showed up, and something shifted. She straightened up slightly. Her voice found more energy. She became more engaged, more present, more on, not performatively, not in a way that feels forced, just quietly, visibly more alive. People don't do that for everyone. They do it for the people who genuinely affect them. If your arrival consistently changes the quality of her energy, you're not just someone in her social circle. You're someone who moves something in her. How to read the full picture. Here's the thing about body language. One sign in isolation doesn't tell you much. Any of these behaviors, taken alone, could have a dozen explanations. But when you start noticing 3, 4, 5 of these signals consistently across different days, different settings, different conversations, a pattern forms. And patterns don't lie. The key is to stay calm and observational rather than reactive. You're not trying to catch her. You're not building a case. You're simply learning to read a language that's been running underneath every interaction you've ever had with anyone. Once you can read it, you stop second-guessing yourself. You stop replaying conversations trying to decode what she meant. You stop missing moments that were right in front of you. You see clearly, and that clarity is what allows genuine connection to actually grow. The woman who's been thinking about you probably hasn't said it directly, or she might not even fully admit it to herself yet. But her body has been speaking for a while now in small, quiet, consistent ways that most men were never taught to notice. Now you know what to look for, not to play games, not to manufacture some strategy, but to show up more aware, more present, and more capable of actually recognizing a real connection when it's right in front of you. That awareness, calm, grounded, observational, is one of the most attractive qualities a man can carry into any interaction. If this gave you something real to think about, hit subscribe. Every week, this channel goes deeper into the psychology of attraction, connection, and what it actually takes to build something meaningful with another person. Drop a comment below. Which of these signs have you noticed and completely missed the meaning of until right now? Stay observant, stay grounded, and start paying attention to what people are telling you without saying a word.